Hi, welcome to my podcast, Reclaim. I am your host, Thaís Sky. I have supported women navigate the complexities of being human for over 10 years. This podcast is where I disseminate some of those learnings and offer thoughts and guests to guide you into your healing. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Thaís Sky here. Oh my gosh, I just finished listening to the conversation with Julie that you're about to listen to. And I am just so delighted by this conversation and that I got to interview this incredible human. Julie Parker is in the house. And we talk about the coaching industry. Now, this is not the first or last time I'm going to talk about the coaching industry because I've been in it for 10 years. Julie has been in it for 19 years. And I was so fascinated and curious to get her perspective on what has changed and evolved over the 20 years that she's been doing this work. But yeah, I've been talking about the coaching industry throughout the podcast because, well, many of you are coaches, because I feel like I have a responsibility to talk about the industry in which my body of work presides in. And also because I have some opinions on ways that we can make sure that this industry is really ethical and really grounded in people first psychology, right? In prioritizing the people that we serve over the money that we make or the transactions that we get from people. You know, when I first started this work in the coaching industry, I saw it as a ticket into my own freedom. That was the most important thing for me, was that I was making money so that I could live the life that I deserved. And I share a little bit of my story with Julie. I've also shared my story pretty abundantly throughout the podcast. And as I grew and as I evolved, I realized that the way I was thinking about my business, the way I was building my business was actually quite exploitive in a way, subtly manipulative, not from an ill intent, but because that's what I thought I had to do. And I began to learn that there's actually a different way that we can approach our business. And if we think about our business more towards people first and really deepening our skill set and our capacity to hold space for people, the other aspects of our coaching business simply thrives. It simply thrives. And so as I have become more confident in seeing these results, in seeing how the more I can hold space for people and understand people, cultivate a type of listening that goes beyond the content of what they're sharing and goes into the process, goes into the underlying communication that they're trying to send to me. The more I can understand human psychology and bring that into my work, the more, my clients leave happy and feeling like they're getting what they want to get out of our time together. The more I feel confident in my work, the easier it is for me to market my work. And then ultimately, the more my business thrives. And that is why I created my mentorship, which I talk about a little bit in this episode, but I wanted to, before I get into the conversation, briefly talk about my mentorship because doors are open for the group track. I have an individual track and a group track. Right now, my individual is closed, but I do have some spots available in my group track. The group track is like a membership. It's like a mastermind where you'll learn from each other and you'll learn from me on how to create a people-first coaching business, which means we're going to be talking about all of the facets of business that is important, how to make money, how to market, how to create the back-end structures, how to do all of the things. But the ways that we focus on that work is by really understanding our clients beyond just what they're bringing to the table, understanding our relationship to them and how that relationship can be used in a way that is a catalyst to their transformation. We also talk about the complexities of holding space for people, how often we feel responsible for them, and then we get caught up feeling like we're not doing enough, and what it means to do more as a coach, what it means when we feel like we're responsible for the results our clients get. I mean, of course, we know we're not responsible, but how do we unhook ourselves from that so that we have the space for them to be who they need to be in our space together? All of this is talked about in the mentorship. And you can go to thaissky.com/mentorship to learn more. Here is what one beloved member of my mentorship mastermind has said. She has said, being a part of Thaís' mentorship has been the most transformational step I have taken in my coaching practice. Before working with Thaís, I would stay up at night, worried about making my coaching practice trauma-informed, but unsure how to do that. I questioned my process so often, concerned that I may be inadvertently leading some of my clients to depths I wasn't comfortable being in myself. As a grief coach, I knew that my work was so important and transformational for my clients, but I also felt the weight of responsibility to do this work ethically and mindfully. I have learned more in 4 months with Thaís than I have in the last 2 years. In such a short time, I have deepened my capacity to hold space for my clients. I've learned to recognize the signs of trauma and to handle them mindfully when they arise in order to avoid re-traumatization. And I have learned so much about the healing power of the coaching relationship. I feel so much more confident in my skills as a coach, and that has affected immense momentum in my business. I now run a coaching practice that is almost fully booked, where my programs fill up quickly and consistently. I am making more money than I have ever made before, and I have no doubt that it's directly correlated to the quality of my work since working with Thaís. Most of all, I'm finally feeling like a leader, a truly competent leader, and I'm prouder than ever of the work I'm putting out into the world. What's amazing about this woman is that in a time that we've worked together, she has quit her job and gone into coaching full time because of the foundation that she has created for herself. I'm not promising anybody that they can quit their job and move into their coaching business full-time working with me, but she was particularly primed to do it. And she just needed a little bit of confidence in understanding how to really be in relationship with her clients. And once she started to cultivate that skill set, her business just took off, and it's been such a treat to see. So if you're interested in learning more about my mentorship, you can go to thaissky.com/mentorship. It's one of my I'm really, really in love with this offering. I think it has so much potential, and it is how the industry is going to maintain its ethical responsibility to one another, which is what I believe what we need to do if we want to maintain a really robust, thriving, beautiful industry. There's a lot of issues in the coaching industry, but I don't think it's all bad. And I think we have a responsibility, each and every single one of us, to show up fully in this industry. And that is what Julie and I are going to talk about. So let me read to you Julie's bio. Julie Parker is the founder of the Beautiful You Coaching Academy, where she passionately trains heart-centered people to become life coaches. As the co-founder of Priestess Temple School, a global movement devoted to uplifting modern-day priestesses as they explore sacred leadership and service in the 21st century, Julie is committed to contributing to a world where presence, healing, and social justice are honored. She has trained with high priestesses in modern-day mystery schools from all over the world. Julie has inspired thousands of people as an in-demand speaker, sacred circle holder, priestess, and flower essence practitioner, and as a recipient of numerous leadership and women's awards. Host of the top-ranking Priestess podcast, Julie has interviewed some of the world's great spiritual thought leaders and has a committed spiritual practice that honors her Celtic lineage, connection to the Great Mother, and self. Julie lives in Melbourne, Australia, with her husband, stepdaughter, and 2 much-loved adopted cats. And you can learn more about Julie by going to juliesuzanneparker.com. You can also go to my show notes, and that will take you to her website. Julie is an incredible storyteller. She's so warm and empathic, and I had such a wonderful time talking to her. And for those of you who are thinking about going to become a life coach, the mentorship is obviously not the right fit for you, because in the mentorship, you need to already have a couple paid clients. But Julie Parker's The Beautiful You Coaching Academy may be a good fit for you. I really vouch for Julie. I vouch for her work. I've seen the most ethical, incredible women come out of The Beautiful You Coaching Academy. I vouch for it 100%. And if you are thinking about going into this industry, that's a great place for you to check out and see if it's a good fit for you. All right. So let's bring in Julie. Let's have this amazing conversation. I will obviously love to hear from you. Let me know how this episode resonated with you on Instagram at I am Thaís Sky. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's bring Julie in. Hello, Julie. Welcome to Reclaim the Podcast. Thanks so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you, Thaís, for having me on. I'm really honored to be here.
What time is it over there? Are you in tomorrow?
Is
I am
today the
in
4th for
tomorrow.
you? Yeah.
Yes, I am tomorrow. It's just after 11 o'clock in the morning, and I know that it's the afternoon for you the day before. So it always feels a little strange, for those of us down under here in Australia, where, skipping ahead in the calendar.
I love it. It's so fun. It's like I'm traversing time by talking to
Mm,
you.
yeah, yeah. It creates a fluidity in
It
many ways
does.
between us. It's like, wow, there's a different date, let alone time. So
Yeah.
amazing.
I am so honored that you are on my podcast. I was on your podcast and I told you this on your episode. But I have been such a big fan of your work. I've seen you interview some really incredible people. And so to have had that opportunity to be with the famous Julie Parker on your podcast was such a treat, such an honor. And I'll link your podcast in the show notes for people who want to check it out, including obviously my episode, which is probably the best one you've ever done, ever.
Of course, of course.
Of course. But okay, so for people who don't know the famous Julie Parker, can you share a little bit about yourself that's not in your bio?
Well, the first thing I feel compelled to say is I'm really not quite sure that I'm famous, but I'm very honored and grateful that you have been on the Priestess podcast, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation with you. What's something that's not in my bio? I'm a country girl at heart and grew up on a farm. I can't ride a bike.
Still, like to this day.
To this day. Yeah, 49
Have you
this
tried?
year. Yes, I have, Thaís. I have tried. And I think if I had to get on one and maybe push or pedal for my life, I might be able to get a block or two, but there is just something about my coordination skills in the realm of the bike world that's not there. But I can dance really well.
That's
like
amazing.
I do. I'm a groover. I've got good dance moves, I think.
A groover.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that are not in my bio. There's lots of other things too.
I don't know why that's not in your bio, Julie. Like that needs to be in your bio.
Maybe it should be. Instead of saying, that Julie lives in Melbourne, Australia with her husband and 2 adopted cats and it's just like Julie can't ride a bike and has an unusually loving relationship with peanut butter.
Peanut. I didn't consume peanut butter until well into adulthood.
I feel so desperately sorry for you about that.
I know. I didn't really like peanut butter until I was an adult. I think I was in college when I had my first peanut butter sandwich. And I was like, wow, I have been missing out on a very essential human experience. Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of making up to do. That's just
don't worry, I'm on it. So you dropped a little fun fact for me before we recorded that I think is like so cool. You said, I'm going to put you on the spot here, that you have been in the coaching industry for 19 years. Now, for an industry where we see a lot of turnover, I thought it was impressive that I've been in it for 10, but you've been in it for double of me. And that is so cool. And so I'm really excited to dive into your mind and like hear about everything that has happened over the past what you've observed of the industry over the past 19 years. So why don't we start there? And then I want to talk about Beautiful You Coaching Academy. I want to talk about, your relationship to spirituality. I mean, there's so much that we can explore here, but I think that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, gosh, it really feels quite extraordinary to me to even be thinking about having done anything in my life for 19 years.
Yeah.
But, that's a sign to me that maybe I need to grow into my self-awareness of how old I am, 49 this year and moving into being 50 soon. And it feels glorious. I don't think that this age of midlife is what it was in my mother's time and certainly not my grandmother's time. And so in so many ways, life really does just feel as though it's warming up and beginning and becoming so juicy and good. It's certainly not anywhere near over, which is wonderful. But I have seen so many changes in the coaching industry over the last 19 years, Thaís, and some of them are really rich and wonderful, and some of them are questionable. The most significant, with the little giggle, little laugh there. So I'm happy to go there if you want to talk about some of those. But to me, the most wonderful thing that has shifted and changed in the industry is the proliferation of women identifying coaches that are now a part of this industry. That was not necessarily, and in fact was not the case when the industry began 20 plus years ago. It's in its early 20s to mid 20s. So at 19 years, I wasn't at the forefront, but I was certainly an early adopter. And even in those 19 years ago, it was still an industry that was very steeped in corporate tradition, behavior, language, marketing, and values. And that's to be expected because that's how the coaching industry began. It has its origins within the corporate world. And that means through the portals and relationships and stems that we can draw from that it was very male dominated and it was very male driven. And so I was the only woman who studied in my class, and I was the youngest by a very long way as well. And so it's absolutely amazing to now see so many women and women identifying folk in this realm because they have such incredibly wonderful, unique, extraordinary gifts. And I love seeing that. It's the biggest shift and change that I've seen in the industry over these years.
Well, let me pause you there because I'm now curious just to hear a little bit about what inspired you then to get into the coaching industry and, what were you doing before and what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I started my professional career as a social worker, and I specialised in working particularly with young people and families who were experiencing very significant mental health difficulties and a lot of systemic life issues that were stemming from that. It could have been anything from intergenerational incarceration to homelessness to newly arrived refugees. And I absolutely loved that work. It was wonderful, and I really, really enjoyed it significantly for about 9 years. And then something began to happen to me personally. And the most direct and succinct way I can describe it is that essentially I started to burn out.
Yeah.
The level of mental illness, depression, trauma, suicide, it started to become very difficult to manage as I was beginning to see people with more and more complex needs, and I don't think I was getting the support that I needed to be able to manage that. And so there were lots of things that began to happen for me personally at that time, including undergoing a spiritual awakening, a crisis of confidence, and developing depression and anxiety myself, which I needed to seek treatment for, all part of the burnout, all part of the journey. And it was then that I started to think to myself, I absolutely love people. I cannot imagine not ever working with people, but I need to find another way of working with them that is maybe going to nourish me more. And that's when a colleague of mine, unbeknownst to her that I was seeking this, came to me one day. This was back in the days where people advertised workshops and events in the local newspaper. So that's how long ago this was. And she brought this clipping to me from the newspaper and said,
clipping.
I know. She said, next weekend, look at this. She said, I saw this in the paper on the weekend when I was having my coffee. It's this workshop about training to become this new thing called a life coach. And she said, Julie, for some reason, your name popped into my head that you would be wonderful at that. And I said, oh, gosh, that's really interesting. And she said, look, I'll go with you because I'm sort of interested too. She said, and there's wine and cheese. And I'm like, okay, exactly. I was like, oh, there's a glass of Pinot and a bit of Brie. Who am I to say no to that? And going along to that little information session really did change the trajectory and course of my life, because it was there that I found out about life coaching and this training academy and school. And I knew that I wanted to do it within moments of them starting to talk about it. I think for me, it was very lucky that the one woman they had on the team actually led the night that night. Mm-hmm. If it had maybe been a man in a suit, I possibly wouldn't have resonated with it as much as I did. But I absolutely loved the woman who delivered the information evening that night. I didn't end up, unfortunately, going on to learn from her, but she was part of the wider team. And yeah, that's when I studied. And even though there were elements of what I learned, a lot of the elements that I learned that I found to be, as I was talking about before, quite corporate and a little bit dry and a bit binding in ways, there was something that told me to keep going and that I could make it my own and that I could expand into it. It was a wonderful new way to work with people, and that's exactly what it turned out to be.
That's an incredible story. I mean, you're such a wonderful storyteller, and I can understand why back then, if coaching was really coming out of the corporate world, that there would have been such a clearer divide between like mental health work and coaching work. And I'm now really, because I straddle both worlds, I'm grappling with what are the differences and what are the similarities. And I think the way that the coaching industry has evolved, it's now becoming very overlapping. And I wonder if the challenges that you've seen in the coaching industry in the 2 decades that you've been doing, I wonder if that's a part of it. Is the complicationness of what it is that coaching actually is versus the difference with what therapy or mental health work is.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, Thaís. And I, of course, as you now know, I knew that you knew this about me before, but so does everyone listening right now to know that I straddle both worlds as well. And this is most definitely something that I have seen in particular come to the fore probably within the last 2 years, most significantly.
Yeah.
It has not always been present. In the early days, I feel confident to say that the line between coaching and therapy, or coaching and counselling, however you would like to term it, was very clear.
Yeah.
A life coach was not a counsellor.
Yeah.
And they did not touch or delve on anything that may be related to trauma or mental illness or anything within that realm. This is now, in some instances, not the case. And for some coaches, they can straddle both because of their qualifications, their learning, their education, their experience, their informedness, and a whole range of other things. But for many other coaches, it is an area that they should not traverse into for all the reasons we know around ethics, boundaries, re-traumatization, the traumatization of the coach when they find themselves in conversations and situations that they do not know how to handle. You know, I've been on training calls in our academy more than once where people have said, but I want to go here and I want to find these things out and I want to understand, you know, the traumas and that someone may have experienced. And, you know, more than once I've said to someone, okay. And so if that then prompts, you know, you asking these questions about someone's, let's say, for example, childhood trauma, and it results in them having a psychotic break, What will you do?
I love your gaze. It's very real. It's very intense. It's like, yeah, this is, I
Yeah.
don't think
What will you
people
do?
think about,
No.
the consequence of it.
Yeah. And then they go either, well, I don't know, or can you tell me? And it's like, no, I can't tell you because I spent 7 years at university.
Yeah.
And layers of a whole range of other courses and things, learning how to deal with the incredible tenderness and challenge of situations like that, for the client, but then also for myself. That's not what you're here to learn.
Yeah.
And so this is an enormous topic, Thaís, as you know,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's not helped by, and I know that you know this too, it's not helped by the fact that there are some people out there that are genuinely, I want to use the word pushing, I don't know whether that's the right word, or selling or marketing courses that really, or experiences or connections with them that really do seem to give the impression that people can do that level of work on that sort of work and hold space for people in that way when they really can't. I only just saw something about it yesterday, and the person running it, or has no trauma qualifications, no psychological qualifications whatsoever. And I look at that and almost genuinely feel traumatized myself.
Yes. Yes. There is an individual that comes to mind that I can't follow on Instagram because every time I follow this individual, my nervous system becomes so stirred up that I can't even ground myself. And this individual promotes trauma education for coaches, but doesn't have any legitimate trauma qualifications themselves, except for their own experience. And
we might be talking about the same person.
Watched them evolve, and I bought their book a long time ago. I've watched their workshops, and I've watched them, and it's hard because on the one hand, who am I to gatekeep anyone from becoming trauma informed? And at the other end of it, I haven't been a coach for as long as I have, and then going and getting my master's and realizing how little I knew as a coach, and not knowing how little I knew, and knowing that a lot of people don't know, and they're kind of mistakenly thinking that they do know. It can be quite terrifying. And that's why it so reassures me when I see people like you, running coaching academies that I know is grounded on, let's get really clear on what your competence is and stick within that competence. I think that's so good work, Julia. I'm so such a big fan of that, because I think it's easy money to sell something that isn't really yours to sell.
Absolutely. And it also presses on people's hearts because let's face it, everybody that comes into this industry in the helping profession desires to be, more than likely, if they're ethical, which is 99.9% of people, I think, and, you want to, all of those sorts of things, they want to be of the deepest and highest service that they possibly can be.
Yeah.
Right. And so this does really ping people in the heart, when they are sold things like, this can make you a better coach, this can be, and so they think, well, that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
And I do think that part of the issue here, Thaís, and this is something that I really am always trying to, in my own small way, shift and change in the industry. I also think it stems from a potential belief or thought process that some coaches have of, I'm not good enough.
Yes.
Or I'll never be able to help people as much as a psychologist could.
Yeah.
Or I need to do more.
Yeah.
Or I feel like this is light on. It's not.
Yeah.
The work that good, boundaried, amazingly competent life coaches can do with people can be transformative.
Yes.
It can change people's lives. It can ignite a whole new sense of self in someone. It can send them on a new path that they otherwise never might have engaged with before. And it does not require any of the things that may delve into realms of counseling and therapy that someone is not trained for. And we have to be, if I could just heartfeltly speak to any coach that is listening right now, be proud of being a coach. Own what you do. You know, what you do is life affirming and can be life changing and wonderful. You don't need to play in any other sandpit other than the one that you are in.
Yes.
Who you are and what you do is enough. It's enough.
Yes, I love that. And I think that a bounded, competent coach that knows their zone of genius, stays in that zone, and delivers from that zone is much more effective than a coach who thinks they have to know a little bit of everything, who is, perpetually trying to prove their worth through their work.
Without question.
Yeah.
Without question. And Thaís, that's one of the other big changes that's happened in the industry that I do love and that I think we should embrace, is that when I trained all those years ago, basically as a life coach, you were expected to work with everyone and anyone between the ages of 18 and 80. There really was no such thing as clear niching of any sort. That's no longer the case. And I actually believe that that's a really good thing, because I think it makes for happier, more grounded, more competent coaches when they get to say, this is what I'm passionate about. This is who I'm passionate about. And this is who I serve. And so rather than attempting to please everybody, they really are, we really are in a place now where we can choose to become very grounded and competent and inspiring in a particular area with a particular type of client. And that's a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting to hear, Julie, you talk about your initial training and how it was so male dominated and how it was so corporate. And to see you now, you're wearing this adorable pink jacket. There's pink behind you. There's, you go to your website and it's, your podcast is called Priestess. I mean, it's just so clear that you're very comfortable in owning your pinkness, right? Owning your femininity, your intuition, your spiritual powers, your priestess, inner priestess. You have a book called Priestess. I mean, clearly you have evolved so much from those years. And I'm curious, what permission did you have to give yourself, or what was that journey like for you of really coming into your own niche, your own power, your own voice in this work? I know it's a huge question.
Yeah, thank you for asking it though. And I really do have the love and joy of a dear friend of mine who works in the creative industries for opening up a portal of truth for me about this, because not long after I graduated from my course and I started my very first website, way back in the days when you couldn't build your own website, you had to get a fabulous tech geek to build it for you at an exorbitant cost, and you couldn't change a thing about it. I absolutely fell into the trap of believing that if I was going to have a successful coaching business, that I needed to take on that very corporate professional persona.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen that website.
Oh, look, Thaís, it's actually one of my deep regrets that I did not take screenshots and photographs of it, because let's just say it was incredibly navy and beige and corporate and vanilla. It was.
Was there a picture of you in a suit with your arms crossed?
I didn't have my arms crossed, but I
Okay.
did have a navy jacket on. It is what I can only describe as a real estate agent photo. Right? That
That's
was
amazing.
the look. I was like, and I had it taken inside a studio, you know, like looking straight at the camera, half smile. So you want to be appear friendly, but not too friendly, you know, all of that sort of stuff. It was very corporate because I had convinced myself that that was what I needed to project and be to be successful. And so it's not going to come as a surprise to you or anybody else that, oh, fancy that, didn't attract any clients. And a friend of mine in the creative industries, we were having a coffee one day, and she said, how's this new coaching thing going? And I went, well, not really well. You know, I still had my full-time job as a social worker, so it wasn't freaking me out. Unlike so many of the young lassies that I see these days that halfway through their training jump ship and then suddenly don't have any income. It's like, please don't do that, everyone. Please don't do that. Hold on to your jobs. And she said, can I just give you some love and some feedback around this?
Aww.
And I went, sure, no worries. And she said, your website is horrendous. She said, not from the perspective that it doesn't look professional and that it's not functional and all that sort of stuff. But she said, where are you?
Yeah.
Where are you, Jules? She said, it's like, I've never seen you in that jacket. She said, where's the pink? Where's the fun? Where's the freshness, the realness? She said, the Julie that we know and love is a connector, it's just missing your playfulness, your femininity, your cheekiness. She said, there is nothing on there about you.
Yeah.
And she said, when I look at it, she said, I don't see the person that I know and love. She said, and that has been a people magnet their whole life. She said, it's like you've just pulled a curtain down over yourself. Well, this hit me between the head like a ton of bricks, you know, when a really dear friend or someone shows you something that's right in front of you that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And suddenly I knew I had to change it all at great cost, time, and expense. And so I did. And I had another photo shoot that was taken in a garden. I was much more casually dressed, felt much more myself, changed up the colors to be much softer, brought out more of my feminine side, which has always been very strong within me. And, you know, the connected. That's right. The connecting story goes, as soon as I did that and I started to feel into the work that I really wanted to do, which was with women around self-care, self-love, self-confidence, and really talking about this is what I love, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I really want to help people with, and that I'm also on this journey as well, my business started to grow.
Yeah.
And it just took off from there. So that's the story of the shift.
Amazing story. And I mean, it's kind of maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Like encouraging, but also sad that, you know, something that you tackled 19 years ago, so many of us are still tackling to this day. It's encouraging because I think it's each entrepreneur's kind of soul journey of learning to really claim themselves in their work. It's also sad that it's like, come on, you know, how long is it going to take for us to like get with the program that we can really be ourselves in this? But I mean, I get it. I get the social familial. I mean, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But
I know you do. I know you do. It's real.
It's wonderful to hear that you struggled with it, because it's like not even time can take away this struggle. This is each individual's opportunity.
It is. And for some of us, if not all of us, in some way or another, it will be part of our journeys.
Yeah.
And all of these years later, I know that the brand of the Academy, my own personal brand, my podcast, my book, the Academy, various different things, many people look at and go, no. No. I am a hard no to that. That is not me. That just looks all wrong. I'm sorry. It is too pink. It's too feminine. That's not right. And I am so delighted about that, because I know that there will be something else out there for them. And yet there are so many others that find it and go, oh, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And it's when you reach that point where you genuinely are okay to turn people off, to turn them away, to understand that you are not for everybody and that you cannot be, that it's a very pivotal life moment in both life and business, because it is a sign that you are shedding patriarchal conditioning, capitalist conditioning as well. You know, this notion of I want and can get the money from all the peoples. It's like, no, you can't, and you shouldn't try, and that's not appropriate and right. It's a good moment when that happens, because it also then goes on to create a ripple effect in your life, and you then to create lots of other things. I mean, you know, Thaís, that I'm somebody that is very outspoken around issues of anti-racism and social justice. And I'm also very, very aware. You know, only just a couple of weeks ago, I had somebody message me and say, you know, all your talk about Indigenous rights at the moment, because it was our national day here in Australia, and which for many years now we've been calling to be changed, because it's actually celebrated on the day of white colonisation in this country, which is inappropriate, offensive and hurtful to our Indigenous folks. Somebody messaged me and said, I was going to sign up for your academy, but you know what? All of this talk that you have going on about, you know, Indigenous rights, I've realised that, you know, you're not the right teacher for me. And all I did was go back and say, I am so happy for you that you have found that out, because you are right. I am not.
But also, this is the thing, you know, they could have just not purchased your course. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so interesting how people decide that they need you to know that. You need to know that they're not going to buy it. But they couldn't just not buy it.
Thaís. But Thaís, you know why people do that. People do that because they want to be the one that slams the door.
Yes.
On the way out.
Yes.
They want to be the one that teaches you.
Yes.
Or make sure that you're aware of why. I just thought I'd let you know.
Such a generous, kind thing to do. Truly,
Absolutely.
I'm touched. Yes. Okay. I want to hear more, though. Tell me more things that you've seen that has changed in the industry over the past 19 years.
Well, there's one wonderful thing, and there's one thing.
I love how you sprinkle in the wonderful things. See, this is so you. You're like, I am not just gonna shit on this industry. No.
Oh no, I never could, because I love it. I love it so
I can
much.
Tell that. I can tell that.
I am passionate about it for all the things that are pear-shaped about it in so many ways. But there are many things that are pear-shaped about the counselling and therapeutic industries as well.
We don't need to hear that type of attitude from you, Julie.
Yeah, it's like, zip it, Julie. One of the wonderful things that I love, but this is probably, you know, more of a personal thing for me as well, is that I absolutely adore the proliferation of coaches and coaching that is coming out around helping people explore their spirituality and divinity.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. You know, once upon a time, that would have been considered to be just a complete hokey joke.
Yeah.
That someone would have assisted and coached and guided and mentored and supported someone with that. But I love that now there is some very, very powerful work that is being done in that space, which is amazing.
That is amazing. I mean, I haven't really taken a moment to really think about that, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, absolutely. It is so cool that type of information. When I, first started getting into spirituality, my mother has always been very spiritual. So like I grew up with like tarot cards, I grew up with yoga, I grew up with meditation, and it was all books. and like if you wanted to take a course, I mean, there was no such thing as an online course. You would have to go to either retreat, which was usually very expensive, or you couldn't really find spiritual mentors unless they were like hidden in a cave somewhere and you heard through the grapevine. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but the fact that now more and more people can have access to their own they can have access to tools that will guide them into their own self, including the tools that you teach, including the book that you wrote, the podcast. I mean, it's so cool how accessible it is.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. This did not exist 19 years ago. It was just not in the landscape at all. And I absolutely love seeing it now and think that it's really profound and beautiful work. Thaís, the one big thing that's not great in this industry, it's probably the biggest thing, at least in my opinion right now, and it has been for a few years now.
I know what you're going to say, but let's see.
Well, with the growth of the coaching industry and the proliferation of new coaches and emerging coaches that come into this space, whenever that happens and there is a growth in numbers in any industry, what seems to happen is that there are opportunistic people that latch onto that and start to really dig into, in not ethical and sound ways, the so-called pain points or triggers of people. And so for new coaches and emerging coaches in this industry, that is around things like getting clients, making money, and having a successful business, whatever that may mean or look like. And so what this has resulted in is an enormous number now of business coaches, and other forms of online marketers essentially putting out courses or experiences or claims along the lines that we've all seen of, you can have 6 new clients in 6 hours. You can have, and it's not just 6-figure anymore, you can have a 7-figure business in 7 weeks. You can, and of course I am being facetious and exaggerating there, but there is some of that stuff that is out there, and this never existed when I first started. It certainly does now, and it is slippery, and it's wrong, and it sends messages that to people that you can bypass the foundational steps. It also places the focus in our industry on marketing and fancy websites and social media followers, as opposed to the art, craft, and skill of coaching.
That's right. Preach.
Which is always going to be, everyone. Maybe if you take away one thing today, if you want to know what makes a successful coach, it's not the $10,000 website how many followers they have on social media. It's actually how good a coach they are.
That's right.
It's your skills. It's your craft. It's the depth of space that you hold. And it is how much you are doing your own work.
Hallelujah.
God, I get a bit emo when I get emotional when I talk about this stuff. I really do, because it's so important to me. It really is. And that's the biggest thing that I see has emerged in this industry that I don't like, and I will constantly attempt to resist and send messages of opposition out about for as long as I breathe in this space.
It's interesting. I reside in an interesting space because I was that coach. I did those things. All of the things that you're talking about, I did them. unapologetically at the time, now tremendously apologetic. But I say that to say that it's so easy.
Oh, it's seductive.
I joke that I could easily fall into a cult. I'm a strong, powerful, competent woman, and yet give me a good cult like culture, and I get so sucked in. It's my people. I don't know. I'm processing it in therapy, Julie. Don't you worry. But
all about belonging, my love. It's all about
belonging.
belonging.
That's right. And it's so seductive. It's so tantalizing, and it's so delicious when you're around people who are like that. It becomes this kind of high, this dopamine excitement of money and speed and fastness and building, and it feels so real. And then you step away and you realize that it was all a facade, and that what's really important hasn't been prioritized. And that's the skill, that's the capacity to be with another human. I've gotten my master's now in clinical psych. I'm 2,000 hours into my 3,000 required hours to become licensed. So I've held a lot of space for people. And I'm now realizing how little I know about holding space for people. Right? It's just this complex skill set that requires so much support and love and grace and your own inner work and your supervision, consultation, people around you to be able to do skillfully. And it makes me so sad that there are people in the industry who push the narrative that actually you don't need any of that. You just need the right funnels. If you just had the right funnels, everything would be fine.
Yes, and that is so seductive because it comes with messages of this can be done quickly and speedily. And it also, underneath it all, and this is the part about it that I think is the most dangerous, is that without even explicitly saying so, Thaís, what it does is that it sends the message that this is actually the most important thing about your coaching and coaching business.
Yeah.
And don't worry about all of those other things that you may need to continue to address within yourself.
Yeah.
And your own healing and your own work and your own skill development. Because if you just do this one thing, everything else will fall into place.
That's right.
And it really is a ruse.
Yeah.
It is a wild goose chase. I know a lot of coaches, a lot of coaches. I'm surrounded by them every single day. And the ones that I know that are the most successful, the longest lasting, the most foundational, the ones that have the most extraordinary reputations and probably behind the scenes are grappling with weeks and weeks, if not months and months and months of waiting lists, are those that truly, truly one can see are devoted to that craft of coaching and their own development.
Yes.
It shocks me that people are still shocked, like even our own trainees or other people, when I tell them that I work with a coach every single year and that I undertake professional development and education. Currently I am doing a course right now that is around holding deeper space for people. It's 9 months long. It's really intensive. And people look at me and go, but why are you doing that? University degrees, 19 years of coaching, you've written. I said, because it is imperative.
Yeah.
Imperative that I do so for my own learning and my own growth, but also because if I want to be a teacher and a guide in this space, how good of one of those am I going to be if I don't show a continual commitment to expanding my craft and getting better at this? You can always be better, always. So it's just imperative. But that marketing, slippery, seductive,
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
things.
And it's, I offer, I don't know if you know this actually. I think maybe you do, but I offer mentorship for coaches who go deep.
Yes. Yes.
And I've been limited in my ability to promote it because of my unavailability with my hours and how much I can devote to promoting it. But I have noticed that even with the amount that I have promoted, I'm having a hard time bringing coaches into it. And I've been thinking about why that is. And it's so interesting because I'll write a post about how coaches need to deepen their skill set. And I'll have hundreds of coaches respond and be like, yes, we do. And then they say they do, right? Like other coaches do. They're not saying this, but they're implying like I don't, but they do. And I think that there's something that I really appreciate what you're modeling, which is it's not that they do, it's that I do, it's that we do. It's not a somebody else who's so grossly incompetent and that's not like they need the support. It's not that. It's we all need the support because this industry is not going to survive if we don't get that type of support. It's just
Absolutely.
Well, survive, let's say. I don't know. It probably
No,
will
I know
survive.
I know what you mean by that. Absolutely. And I also think that this speaks to the fact, and this is where we bring in all sorts of things around, if we wanted to go off on a tangent, gosh, we could talk for hours, which I know we're not going to do, but where you can bring in things around capitalism and white supremacy and all those sorts of things. We've got to stop and think about where are we spending our money?
Yeah.
What are we spending our money on?
Yeah.
And what seems to be happening, and this is the seduction part of it, is that far too many of us, and I've been there too. I don't say this as somebody that's got a perfect track record with this. I've fallen prey to those marketing techniques before as well, is that we seem to be so much more willing to open our wallets for any kind of course, coaching, or experience that promises to make us more money.
Yes.
And less so when it's about becoming an actual better coach.
That's right.
Well, folks, take it from somebody that's been in this space for coming up to 20 years now. You become a better coach.
The money
your
comes,
chances,
baby.
That's right. Your
It
chances
does.
of attracting more clients and more money to you
Yes,
will come.
Yes.
Will come. Now, it'll probably happen potentially slower because usually what occurs there is that you become a word of mouth machine.
Yes.
You will support and help your clients to achieve such brilliant results that people will talk about you in glowing terms. They will share you. They will want other people to know about you. And suddenly what happens is that a portal of potential and possibilities will open up.
That's right.
Towards you. We've got to stop going for the quick buck.
Yeah. Yes. That's right.
And having others earn quick bucks from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And as someone who's in 5 hours of supervision a week right now, I can attest that the more support we get, the better work we do, the easier this work becomes, the more fulfilling it is, the more it prevents burnout. I mean, I could just go on forever, and I'm aware of the time, and that bums me out because I feel like we could just talk forever. I am just so delighted by this conversation, your wisdom, your knowledge, your insights, the longevity of which you have been in this industry speaks to that foundation that you have built for yourself and how impactful your work is. So I'm just so glad to have this opportunity to speak with you today and to get a slice of your insights for the peoples.
Well, thank you for having me, Thaís. And I just want to say, I just admire you so much for the integrity that you're bringing into this industry. When an integral heart sees an integral heart, we see all of each other. And I see you. Thank you.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll link all of the things in the show notes for people who want to find out more about you and check out your podcast and all that beautiful stuff. Any final word before we wrap up?
Oh, gosh, just enjoy the journey, everyone. If you are a coach listening to this, understand that a truly successful, foundational, impactful business and work as a coach takes time to develop. Don't be in a hurry. Devote yourself to your craft, devote yourself to you and your learning, and surround yourself with people who do the same.
Yeah.
And then so much of those other things that we were talking about will actually fall out of your scope and your screen. They won't touch you or be as prominent for you as they may be for someone else. And that's going to allow you a clear path forward to really feel into your uniqueness and what you bring and how you can build your own business and coaching skills in your way.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Julie, for being with me today.
Thank you.